Hey, welcome to Sitecore UMC training. For this module, we're going to cover the content and content page with sidebar templates. Uh, from the back end, they're identical. The only difference in their display is the content page does not have the sidebar element with the ads, most viewed, and etc. So, but as far as managing them, these sections on the sidebar are not typically manipulated within the content page or even the content page with sidebar selections. It's just a different view of the same sort of content. So just a quick overview of the anatomy of a content and content page with sidebar. You have the page title, the publish date, and then you get into your article image. Your article image is caption, body copy, and then those are the only displayed elements that are affected on the front end, back end. So we're going to go to the back end. This is one of the simplest types of I guess for lack of a better word, content you can create within Sitecore, our specific use case. So I'm assuming as a prerequisite that you've already been through the general training for Sitecore, which covers the dashboard, ribbon, file tree, content editor. If none of those words make sense, then go back to sitecore.umc.org and just go through the general training there. So I'm going to dive right in. In the other training, we will have discussed where to insert content. For now, just know that UMC is still in development. So typically, where the other environments you would expand home, and there would be a content folder, or in the UM News case, a news folder. Instead, we're going to be working in something called the sandbox. In order to create new content, you have to first select the page template. You do that by right-clicking on the content folder, insert, and then you select your page template. For this, it'll be content page with sidebar. I've already selected content page with sidebar, and that's the content that's loaded in the content editor right now. So upon initially creating the content page, you're going to, and I'm just going to refer to both templates as content page from here on. Just know it covers both with and without sidebar. When you initially create this page template, it's going to ask you to name the item. You can do that in any way that you want, with the exception, and actually let me backtrack on that. You can do that using any formatting you want on text, uppercase, lowercase, spaced, dashed, however you want to do it. Keep in mind you're defining the slug here. So I'm going to do content page, training content page SLF being my initials, so that if I want to delete this later I can find it easily. I'm going to click OK, and you're going to see this slug. Very little is going to change on the slug because it's designed to lowercase any data that's entered there and put dashes between where spaces were. It also omits special characters. It will actually warn you you can't use special characters here. But you'll notice down here in the actual title, typically the name that you used to create this slug will populate down here exactly as you typed it. Here I've added an exclamation mark just to show you that you can use special characters on this title. This is not the slug. This is the actual title of the article that displays across the top of the page and in previews on other pages where that content is feeding in. So the back end, we've covered the title. The next sections are fairly logical. Summary, which again is the preview text when this page is featured on another parent page. This is limited to 160 characters. You can type as many characters as you want, but they will not all appear, and you will also get a warning in the dialog box if you exceed that 160, and I'll show you what I mean. So, okay, when I click down here, I'm going to get this red border. On the side, that is typically a warning. Some of these warnings are important to pay attention to. The maximum length of the summary field is 160 characters. You can still publish with some of these warnings. It is worthwhile to hover over that bar, and you'll get a brief explanation of why it's there. Next, after the summary, we're going to go into the body. Here, the most common use case is going to be to paste content from another location. In order to do that, you're going to click Show Editor. Now, this is what's called a WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get editor. It's intended to be very similar to a word processing program, so like Microsoft Word or comparable platforms. Here, what I've done is I've gone ahead and I've pasted content from a lorem ipsum generator, which is just an external website I use to get sample dummy content. I'm going to hit accept, and you'll notice that this red border is here. Again, like I said, you're going to want to pay attention to those as much as you can. This one is saying that there are formatting pieces in this body that Sitecore wasn't expecting. Either that or it is missing some. So what we can do, our version of Sitecore is designed to strip away most unwanted or problematic HTML or CSS formatting. So most of the time that red border is not going to represent a significant issue. But just to preview it, if you have HTML experience, click the HTML tab and you can preview the content here. Now what this error is complaining about are these BR or break tags. If you're familiar with HTML, you'll know what I'm talking about. If you're not, then don't sweat this. Just know that that's why those errors are coming up. So I'm going to remove just all of the HTML tags and hit accept. You'll notice that all of my spacing went away. What Sitecore is expecting is that those elements would be inserted manually through this WYSIWYG editor. So you'll notice now if I save it and do that, then the red border is gone and I still have the spacing. So it just means that the formatting that was accomplished for this article was not accomplished in the way Sitecore anticipated. It's saying, hey, you carried over some HTML from wherever you cut this, and it could cause problems. So it's worth noting, but like I said, most of the time it's not going to represent a substantial issue. Now, if you are working on Resource UMC or UMC, then you will not need the byline. But just know if you are on UM News, you can use these byline features to add a byline to your articles. There's a default byline that you can exclude, or you can choose to separate it by byline descriptor and cited source. Additionally, the publish date will be default automatically. I started this page creation at 8/14 on May 30th, 2019, so that's automatically set there. Just know that the publish date actually affects when this content appears. It has less to do with the displayed publish date. So we're going to continue down. The video ID, that allows you to embed video as the featured section on the content, or up here at the top where this article image is. I can cover that later, but just know for now that you can use a YouTube video ID, which if you visit a YouTube video, and anything after this V equals, you can cut it and paste it in this video ID section, and it will appear where that article image appears. And it should occupy the same space. Continuing down, we have the two more likely use cases than the video are going to be the preview image and the article image. The preview image is blank here. The reason for that is if you have an article image that you're okay being the thumbnail, then just select the article image. You don't need this preview image unless you would like the thumbnail to be different from the displayed featured article image at the top of your page. That's what the preview image is for. Likewise, if you select a preview image, it will not appear as the article image up here. That's just for the other. That functionality is just to display the article image. So you want to make a selection of the article image at least. So there's also some slideshow capability that we'll get into in another module. Just by selecting these images and moving them over here, you can create a slideshow. There are some parameters to keep in mind when you're doing that, though. So like I said, I'll cover that more later. The last section after you've chosen your preview image and your article image is to scroll down to the article tags section. When I say section, I mean these gray bars. Here you're going to select various sorting mechanisms to determine where this article can display. So if you have a category page, you're going to select the applicable category, and ideally that will make this piece of content available whenever that category is selected on a parent page. That will be covered more when we discuss specific page templates like intermediate, content, and campaign. For now, the categories are still being imported, but you will select them by choosing the category and then clicking the arrow to move it into the selected field over here. You can select multiple categories. The one at the top is the one that takes priority. So we're going to select both of these, and you can move one. You can move their order. The one on top is prioritized. For now, author is not something that's used as a sorting mechanism. So tags is the other critical piece. So I'm going to choose Advent just for kicks. I've already selected Away Forward and Abundant Health. Again, if you want to reprioritize one over the other, you can do that using these arrows, move them up and down. So now that we've selected the sorting mechanisms, categories, and tags, we're ready to save this piece of content. Once you've saved it, before you publish, you can actually click on the preview over here. This preview will open up a new tab, and you'll see a sidebar editor nav bar across the top that you can interact with a bit. But the more important piece is that your content will display below here, and you'll be able to see what it looks like once it's live on the page. Like I said, there's no difference when you're creating a piece of content between content page and content page with sidebar, except for the display of the sidebar, which you will not configure on the individual pieces of content. And by default, all pieces of content should be with sidebar, because that allows ad revenue to be generated from the ads in the sidebar, and also adds these specifically requested functional pieces like the Twitter feed and the Ask Us, Find a Church, like that, calls to action. So that's my tutorial on creating a content page with sidebar. We'll cover more in upcoming modules.